Hello, everyone. It is August. We are already in August. Wow. We're in the last quarter of 2020, and hopefully, we end on a good note as the whole year has been quite a show. And I think my neighbor is yelling for some reason. But today, we're looking at Isaiah chapter 19 of Isaiah 1 through 15. And what we have been doing, I wanted to do like a read along and just kind of stop here and there in terms of what stood out to me and just kind of some quick explanations and maybe a question. And I actually only have one big question today, and it's very similar to the many questions we have done in the past, but it's one where we kind of have to really kind of sit with because it's a question that addresses our posture on a daily basis. And so, yeah, we're looking at Isaiah chapter 19. Again, hopefully everyone's doing okay. The storm, especially in New Jersey, it has been kind of crazy. I know power's been coming like flickering in and out, and so hopefully you guys are doing well and okay. And so Isaiah 19, it says, "See, the Lord rides on a swift cloud and is coming to Egypt. The idols of Egypt tremble before him, and the hearts of the Egyptians melt with fear." Now, verse 1 says, "The idols of Egypt tremble before him." Now, one of the big key things that I learned in seminary, and seminary is just a school for pastors, or want people who want to be pastors, and I mean there's other majors too that people go to like missions or church planting and whatnot. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pastor or counseling, but one of the things that ancient culture that the Bible was written in, we call it the Near Eastern culture, is that their issue with life was not, is there a God? Because that's a question for us, like more modern day question, like is there an existence of God? Is there a higher power? For them, they knew it was genuinely believed, everyone believed in some sort of higher power. They believed in an existence of God. Now, for them, the question wasn't, is there a God? The question was, which one is the real God? And so there, it led to a place where the cultures, what we like to call make polytheistic religion and all that stuff, but more than that, there was like all these religions that had many idols and gods, and a lot of times people, it wasn't that people didn't believe God existed, the God of the Bible. It's just they believed that he was just one of many gods. And so today, when even in the very first verse, God is being compared to the idols or the gods of Egypt. Not that they're actual gods, right? If anything, at most they're demonically sourced beings, but that God is being compared to their deities and their gods, and he's saying, you know, I'm gonna completely unravel your power structures. I'm gonna unravel everything that you hinge your strength upon, and show you that I am the only one. There can only be one, and God is revealing Himself that He is the only one. Sorry if you hear a lot of noise. My neighbors are vacuuming and yelling, and their kids are running all over the place, and so God bless them. Anyways, so God is already coming to a place where He is saying, I'm not like everyone else. I am the only one, and therefore I'm going to show you. And I'm coming riding on a swift cloud, and you are pretty much going to see that I am the one, right? In verse 2 it says, I will stir up Egyptian against Egyptian, brother will fight against brother, neighbor against neighbor, city against city, kingdom against kingdom. The Egyptians will lose heart, and I will bring their plans to nothing. They will consult the idols and the spirits of the dead, the mediums and the spiritists. I will hand the Egyptians over to the power of a cruel master, and a fierce king will rule over them, declares Lord, the Lord Almighty. Now, if you've been reading your Bible and you know, I mean, it's hard to not know the story of Exodus, Moses, and splitting of the Red Sea. Even non-believers kind of have an idea of the Red Sea and Moses, right? And leaving Egypt. Historically speaking, Egypt for the Israelites have always been a place of oppression and freedom, meaning they were oppressed for 400 years, but then God came and in a miraculous way redeems his people from being slaves. So they went from a nation of slaves to a nation of free people as the people of God. And throughout history, Egypt was a place where it was known to that they shouldn't ever rely on that place or go back. It's like resemble their old life. Now, throughout the era of the kings, there had been many temptations when there was outside pressure to go back to Egypt to build alliances or find their hope in Egypt. And more than just going to a worldly power, what it also resembled was that Israel went back to its former ways to deal with the present circumstances. And that's a question for all of us today, right? When we are hard pressed, when the situations are getting tough and it's there's a lot of pressure on us and we're overwhelmed, where do we turn to? Do we go back to our old ways? Do we go back to our own Egypt? Right? We all have our own Egypt where we were a slave to sin or we were a slave to our old lifestyle. And then God redeems us and we become his people. But there are always those moments when the pressure is on where we're tempted to go back. We're tempted to go back to our old ways. Now, the question being is this: for you and me, what is Egypt for us? What is our Egypt? What is that thing that we are tempted to go back to when things are not going well? For some people, it can be media. Some people, it could be foods. For some people, it can be toxic relationships. It can be addictions. It can be loss. It could be anything. Even it could be work. And you may think, wow, that's how's that a bad thing? Doing work or doing either work or schoolwork, whatever the case may be. When we are not addressing the issues of our lives, but we try to distract ourselves, that's when we're on this roadmap towards a bad conclusion. And so it's stuff like even work. Work is not necessarily a bad thing, but if it's used to cover up things, then it's now being used to do bad. So what's very interesting is that even the verses 2 to 4, the Egyptians lose heart, and we see that God is unraveling the hope of Israel, meaning Israel was at this time, as they're being hard pressed by Assyrians and Babylonians and whatnot, they are tempted to go back to Egypt to form an alliance. And God says, "You're putting your hope into these people, and when you should be putting your hope in me. And let's see what these people are about, right?" And he's saying that these people are going to be judged, and pretty much the big question. I'm gonna just kind of skip ahead for all of us, and this is the big question for all of us today: is who do we trust? Who do we trust? Who do you trust? When times are tough, where do you go? Because this is the thing: for Israel, they're going to Egypt to bail them out from a situation of being almost conquered, rather than going to God. And God is pretty much saying through this illustration is that you would rather not go to me, but go to a nation that one has historically been known to oppress you, but two, you're going to a nation that ultimately their fate is actually in my hands. Why are you going to them when you should go to me, when I'm in control of all things? They're not even in control of their own situation. Why? Because when you look at the rest of this passage, you see their economy is failing. Their counselors and their wise people, their elders are unwise. Um, and their nation's is going to be in what do you call it, shambles. And God's saying you would rather put your faith and hope in that than put your faith and hope in me, the all powerful, the all knowing, the unmovable God that I am. And we may look at that and say, "Oh, that's pretty foolish. Why would the Israelites not do that?" But we do that every day, right? We do that to a certain degree. We do that every day when we run to sin, or when we don't go to God, saying that we have a busy schedule, so therefore to meet a busy schedule rather than meet a perfect God to help us through that busy schedule, we cut him out completely just to take care of that need, right? And so, what is that thing that we think is the hope and power to save us when in reality it is just as broken, if not offering a poor person's salvation, right? And so, if you look at verse 5, it says, the waters of the river will dry up, and the riverbed will be parched and dry. The canals will sink, the streams of Egypt will dwindle and dry up. The reeds and the rushes will wither, also the plants along the Nile at the mouth of the river. Every sown field along the Nile will become parched, will blow away and be no more. The fishermen will groan and lament. All who cast hooks into the Nile, those who throw nets on the water will pine away. Now, the reason why Egypt was such a powerhouse in the ancient days was because they had the Nile River. That physical river that they had. It's not spiritual, it's not metaphorical. The literal Nile River was one of the big reasons as to why Egypt became a powerhouse, because that river was a source for all their like resources. It was the source for all their prosperity and their strength. It was connected to a body of water, and for them, that was their kind of like pride and joy. It was kind of like, this is what we're all about. Like for instance, like you know how certain cities are known for certain things. Like if you go to Chicago, they're, if you talk about the food scene, right? They're known for their deep dish pizzas. Their what's it called? It's not called Italian sandwich. It's called like a Italian sausage. It's like a hot dog, like a fancier hot dog, heavier, more fattening hot dog. But man, is it delicious! Uh, like Chicago is known for that. San Diego is known for like Mexican food, like amazing, amazing Mexican food. New York is known for pizza. I know they have good pizza, but I don't know if that's like what it's known for. Let's just say bagels. New Jersey and New York bagels, right? It's like this is what they're known for, and that's the same thing with Egypt. They're known for their Nile. They're known for like how like it's like a gem, but God's saying you rely on them because you even know that they have something like the Nile, but look at their Nile. It's completely and utterly destroyed. It's finite. It cannot save forever, right? And again, the big fundamental question for today's Devo is, who do you trust? Where do you go when things are tough, right? The fishermen will groan and lament. All who cast hooks in the Nile, those who throw nets on water will pine away. Verse 9. Those who work with comb flax will despair. The weavers of fine linen will lose hope. The workers in cloth will be dejected, and all the wage earners will be sick at heart. The officials of Zone are nothing but fools. The wise counselors of Pharaoh give senseless advice. How can you say to Pharaoh, I am one of the wise men, a disciple of the ancient kings? Where are your wise men now? Let them show you and make known what the Lord Almighty has planned against Egypt. The officials of Zone have become fools. The leaders of Memphis are deceived. The cornerstones of her peoples have led Egypt astray. The Lord has poured into them a spirit of dizziness. They make Egypt stagger in all she does, as a drunkard staggers around in his vomit. There is nothing Egypt can do, head or tail, palm branch or reed. And I like how it just ends like that for today. It was like, there's nothing Egypt can do. So again, big question, where do you run to when things are tough? Or when things, in just general. Because in here the last line says, there's nothing Egypt can do. Because you could put whatever is that you run to in that line. There's nothing blank that can do for you that God has not already done and can do and will do. But why is it that we're so tempted to not go to God but something else? And so that is the big question for today. Who do you trust? And why? And if it's not God, why? And therefore, something to really look into our hearts, because we may have moments at the altar where we say, Lord, I give you everything, but we all know that what happens in a moment in the altar requires a lifetime to steward to make that a reality. Like for instance, I know a lot of people who give their lives to the Lord at an altar, but they have not given their lives to God every day. Not to condemn them, because we all go through it, right? But I say this: everything that happens in an altar call moment, everything that happens during ministry time, doesn't mean it's fake, but what it means is that you need to steward that after that moment to make it a hard reality for yourself. So it's therefore, if you committed your life to Christ during an altar call, it takes a lifetime to steward that call, that sacrifice. or that commitment. And so, hopefully you guys are doing okay. Be safe in the storm. Don't go out if you don't have to. Um, and yeah, let me pray. Lord, we just thank you for this time, and I pray that as we look into where and what or who we trust in more than you, may we be convicted, O Lord, to redirect it all to you again. We thank you in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Be blessed.